Nvidia's Nemoclaw just dropped, and there's a number that keeps showing up when people talk about OpenClaw. 1 hour. That's how long it took one developer, an Austrian software engineer, sitting at his desk in Vienna to build the first version of what will become the most talked about AI tool of 2026, 1 hour. And by the time February rolled around, that 1 hour project had 1.5 million AI agents created by users on the platform. It had overtaken React on GitHub with over 208,000 stars. It had Sam Altman, OpenAI, calling Steinberger a genius. It had Meta, Microsoft, and every major AI lab in the world calling him on the phone. And today, at NVIDIA's biggest event of the year, Jensen Huang walked on stage in front of 30,000 people in San Jose, pointed at OpenClaw and said something that should stop every business owner, every manager, every founder dead in their tracks. Every single company in the world today has to have an OpenClaw strategy. That's what Jensen Huang said. Not should think about, not might want to explore, has to have. And that is the CEO of the most valuable chip company on earth, a company that powers the AI systems of Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, standing in front of thousands of the world's top developers and saying, this is the new computer. And today, Nvidia just made it safe enough for your company to actually use it. That is what Nemoclaw is. That's what today is about. If you're running a business, managing a team, or trying to figure out where AI is actually going, this episode is for you. Let me walk you through the whole thing. So first, let me make sure everyone is on the same page about what OpenClaw actually is, because this is not another chatbot. This is not ChatGPT with a different name. What OpenClaw does is fundamentally different from anything most people have used before. This can actually do things. It can run files locally on your computer. It can do all sorts of things. Now, here's where the story gets a bit complicated, and this is the part that most people glossed over in the excitement. OpenClaw blew up, millions of people downloaded it, developers built thousands of add-ons for it called skills, but security researchers found 341 malicious skills on ClawHub with a 12% contamination rate, meaning roughly 1 in 8 of those downloadable add-ons was doing something dangerous in the background. Meta actually restricted its own employees from OpenClaw, and Meta AI safety researcher, the person whose entire job is to think about the risks of AI systems, had an AI agent delete her emails without being told to. In March 2026, Chinese authorities restricted state run enterprises and government agencies from running OpenClaw apps on office computers in order to diffuse potential security risks. And OpenClaw was one of the fastest growing AI tools in history. It still is. It was also, for most companies, completely unusable in a professional setting, too unpredictable, too risky, no guardrails, no security controls, and no way to know what it was really doing with your data. Now, the dream was real, but the dream had a problem. And that's a gap that NVIDIA just announced is closing. So here's what Nemoclaw actually is and why it matters so much. NVIDIA is an open source stack that simplifies running always on OpenClaw assistance with Nemoclaw, right? More safely and with a single command. It installs the NVIDIA OpenShell runtime, part of the NVIDIA Agent Toolkit, a secure environment for running autonomous agents, and open source models like NVIDIA Nemotron. Enterprises deploying autonomous agents across proprietary workflows need governance, isolation, and control. OpenShell defines how agents access data, use tools, and operate within policy boundaries. So let me just translate that out of tech speak. You know how when you hire a contractor to work in your office, for example, you don't just hand them the keys and let them wander around, right? You give them a badge. You set rules about which rooms they can enter. You tell them what they can and can't touch. You log when they come and go. That is OpenShell. That is Nemoclaw. It's the same OpenClaw agent, same capability, same power, but it now runs inside a set of walls. It knows what it's allowed to do. It knows what it's allowed to touch. Your company's private data stays private. Your agent doesn't just go rogue and start deleting emails. And Jensen Huang described it simply as the keynote. It finds OpenClaw, it downloads it, it builds you an AI agent. One command, and that's all it takes to set up now. And here's the strategic genius of what NVIDIA just did, because this is not just a safety announcement, this is a power move. Think about what NVIDIA has built its entire empire on, aka GPUs, the chips inside computers that make AI run fast. For years, NVIDIA has dominated AI because its hardware is simply the best hardware for training and running AI models. But there has always been a question hanging over the company. What happens when the hardware wars slow down? What happens when chips become commodities? That's basically what you're looking at with NVIDIA's answer, right? NVIDIA's answer for years has always been CUDA. CUDA is a programming system that NVIDIA built that makes it much easier to write software that runs on NVIDIA chips. Once developers learn CUDA, they built their tools on CUDA, right? Once tools were built on that, companies had to use it. And once companies used it, they had to use Nvidia chips. The software created a moat around the hardware. Nemoclaw is CUDA for the age of AI agents. By making Nemoclaw freely available, NVIDIA accelerates enterprise adoption whilst ensuring every deployment runs on NVIDIA infrastructure. That mirrors the strategy that made CUDA an unbreakable competitive moat, but extends it into the fastest growing segment of AI, aka autonomous agents. And think about the scale of that play. Every company that uses Nemoclaw to deploy AI agents is running those agents on NVIDIA's OpenShell runtime, on NVIDIA's Nemotron models, ideally on NVIDIA hardware, the RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell workstations with up to 4000 TOPS of local AI compute and 96 gigabytes of GPU memory. NVIDIA is giving away the software layer to cement control of the hardware layer. And they're doing it at exactly the same moment when companies are starting to seriously ask, how do we actually deploy AI agents safely inside our business? The timing isn't an accident. Now, let me tell you what this actually looks like in practice for a real company, because I think a lot of people hear AI agents and imagine something very science fiction, very abstract, something that exists in a lab somewhere and will maybe affect them in 10 years. That's not what's happening. Artificial intelligence is moving from simple prompt based tools to intelligent, long running systems that reason, plan, and act. These autonomous agents do not just generate text, they can write code, call tools, analyze data, simulate outcomes, and continuously improve. Here's a concrete picture. Imagine you run a sales team. Every day, your reps are doing the same tasks. They get a list of all the leads, they look up each company on LinkedIn, they pull up the company's recent news, they draft a personalized email, they schedule a follow up in the CRM, they log the activity. How long does that take a human? A couple hours every single day, right? An OpenClaw agent running on Nemoclaw does all of that, not in 2 hours, in minutes, every lead, every morning, whilst your rep is just drinking their coffee. And that's not replacing the rep, that's just making the rep dramatically more productive. Or imagine you run a small legal firm. Every week there are contracts to review, clause by clause, flagging language that doesn't match your standard templates, logging changes. And that work takes a paralegal like 2 days. An agent can do it overnight. Or imagine you are a content creator, right? Every Monday, you need to scan like 10 different news sources, pull out the relevant stories for your audience, draft the newsletter, check the links, format everything. And that's like 3 hours of admin, right? An agent handles it whilst you sleep. And this is not the future. This is what people are already doing with OpenClaw right now. The only thing that's been missing, the only reason companies haven't adopted this at scale is the security problem. Nemoclaw just solved this security problem. Now, I want you to stop here for a second because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, okay, that's great, but I'm not a developer. I've never deployed a piece of software in my life. I do not know what a runtime environment is. I do not know what GPU memory means. This sounds like something for tech companies, not for me. And I hear that, but I want to gently push back on it. Huang said at the keynote, it is now as simple as it finds OpenClaw, it downloads it, it builds you an AI agent. One command, non technical setup, run on your existing computer. Remember when setting up email was a technical skill? Remember when building a website required knowing how to code? Remember when running a spreadsheet required an accountant? These things did not stay hard forever. They got easier as the tools got better. And this is exactly what's happening with AI agents right now in real time. The technical barrier is collapsing so fast that by the time most businesses wake up to this, the early movers will already have months of advantage. GTC 2026 attendees can build their own AI agent using Nemoclaw at the GTC Park Build a Claw event running from today till the 19th. The ability to deploy a production ready AI agent in under an hour directly from a conference session is the kind of developer experience that builds lasting platform loyalty. 1 hour to build a production ready AI agent at a conference booth. This is not a PhD level skill anymore. Now, here's a part of the story that I think gets missed in all the technical coverage. Look at the arc of OpenClaw in the last few months, right? One developer, 1 hour, 200,000 GitHub stars, way more at this point, actually. 1.5 million agents created. Sam Altman calling him a genius. Peter Steinberger joins OpenAI. Meta buys Moldbook. NVIDIA announces OpenClaw and Nemoclaw at GCC in front of 30,000 people. That is 60 days, right? 60 days from a guy built something in an hour to the CEO of NVIDIA says every company in the world needs a strategy around this. I keep saying this on the podcast because I want to say it again, purely because I think it doesn't fully land until you see an example that's concrete, right? The pace is not a trend line. The pace of this is not gradual adoption. This is phase change. This is the kind of speed where if you're waiting to see how it plays out, you're already behind. I mean, think about other moments like this in tech history. Linux was a hobby project by one developer, Linus Torvalds, in 1991, and companies actually laughed at it, right? By 2010, it ran most of the internet. Jansen Huang himself compared OpenClaw's arrival to Linux reshaping the software stack. He's not wrong about the parallel. An open source project created by one developer in their spare time that becomes the foundation of how enterprises run their most critical systems. That's a Linux story, and that might be the OpenClaw story, except Linux took 20 years to reach that point. OpenClaw reached a major enterprise conference keynote stage in just 4 months. That should tell you something. Now, let me talk about the bigger picture of what Nemoclaw means for business strategy, because this is not just a software release. This is the opening of a new era of how companies work. For the last 20 years, enterprise software has been dominated by one model, SaaS, software as a service. You pay Salesforce to store your customer data. You pay Slack to run your messaging. You pay HubSpot to manage your marketing. You pay Workday to run your HR, right? You are renting access to software that lives in someone else's data center. Huang says Nemoclaw could turn SaaS into gas, right? Guidance as a service, with AI acting as a service layer. Think about what that means. Right now, Salesforce charges you to store and organize your customer data. But what you actually need is not stored, organized data. What you need is to close deals. You need someone to follow up with the right leads at the right time with the right message. An AI agent running on Nemoclaw can do that follow up. It can pull from your customer data, draft the message, send it, log the response, and update the record. The underlying database still exists. But the human actions on top of it, the things that are actually paying the sales ops team to do, those start to get automated. And this is why the smartest investors are watching this space so closely. Not because AI agents are like cool technology, which absolutely they are, but the difference here is the AI agents can eat directly into the labor cost that every business in the world right now is carrying, right? The companies that figure this out first, that identify which workflows in their business can be handled by an AI agent and set those up now, are going to have a structural cost advantage over every competitor who waits. And that's not a prediction, that's already happening. And here's the thing I want you to sit with for a second, because I think there's a version of this conversation that feels very distant and abstract. Like, okay, big companies are going to have AI agents. That's great for Nvidia's stock price. But what does it actually have to do with you or me? Here's what it has to do with you. The shift that's happening with AI agents is not happening at the Fortune 500 level first and then slowly trickling down to small businesses in 10 years. It's happening right now at every single layer simultaneously because OpenClaw is free. Nemoclaw is open source. The tools are not locked behind enterprise contracts and six-figure license fees. They are available to anyone with a computer and an internet connection. The person running a 5-person marketing agency has access to the same agent infrastructure as a 1,000-person tech company. The freelance consultant sitting in their home office can deploy the same tools as a major consulting firm. And that has never been true before. And it means the competitive advantage is not about who can afford the tools. The competitive advantage is about who understands how to use them, who builds the right skills, who figures out first which tasks in their business can be automated and actually set that automation up. And that is a knowledge advantage, not a capital one. This is why I started the AI Profit Boardroom community, because the question isn't whether AI agents are going to change the way businesses operate. That ship sailed long times ago, right? The question is whether you're going to be one of the people who understands the shift well enough to benefit from it, or one of the people who wakes up in 2 years and realizes the ground shifted underneath them whilst they were waiting to see what happened. In the AI Profit Boardroom, we go deeply on exactly this: real tools, real workflows, real examples of these AI agent systems that are being used right in business right now. We actually got a 6-hour course on OpenClaw and another full tutorial I just released on Nemoclaw today to cut costs and increase output. Not theory, practical stuff you can act on this week. If you want to be in that room, the link's in the comments description, or you can go to the AIProfitBoardroom.com. Now, let me bring this back to today and tell you what the Nvidia announcement means for your immediate future. Nvidia has reportedly held conversations with Salesforce, Cisco, Google, Adobe, and CrowdStrike about early partnerships for Nemoclaw, right? Read that list again. Salesforce, Cisco, Google, Adobe, CrowdStrike. These are not small experiments. These are the companies that run the software stacks of most major businesses on Earth. If they integrate Nemoclaw, and the conversation is clearly already happening, then the path for AI agents to get inside corporate infrastructure just became an expressway. NVIDIA's Nemoclaw stack gives enterprises the governance, control, and privacy required to tackle complex business tasks entirely on premises. On premises. That is the key phrase for corporate IT teams. It means your data doesn't leave your building. Your agent isn't sending confidential customer information to some third party cloud server. It's running on your hardware, under your control, inside your walls. And that's what's been missing from this whole AI agent conversation. Not capability, not intelligence. The enterprise was always watching, always interested, but never able to move because the security piece was not there. And now it is, which means the pace of enterprise adoption is about to accelerate dramatically. The question is not will companies use AI agents? The question has shifted to which companies will have this deployed before their competitors. Here's what I think the next 12 months look like based on what we know today, right? The early movers, the tech forward companies, the startups, the founders who are watching this space closely, they are deploying Nemoclaw based agent systems right now this month. They're figuring out which workflows make sense. They're building internal knowledge. They are creating competitive advantages whilst their competitors are still in wait and see mode. The second wave, the mid-sized companies, the professional service firms, the companies that are not tech first but are not tech last either, they start moving in Q3 and Q4 of this year. The Nvidia partnerships with Salesforce and Adobe push it into the tools those companies already use every day. So the barrier to adoption drops below the decision making threshold. And the third wave, the late adopters, the companies that are genuinely resisting change until the competitive pressure is undeniable. They get there in 2027 and 2028. But by that point, the advantage is gone. They're just catching up, they're not getting ahead. Which wave do you want to be on? Because it's not theoretical. That is a strategic, that is the strategic question sitting in front of every business leader right now. Because this is not a platform that requires a complete business transformation to use, you don't have to rebuild your company around AI agents all at once. You could start with one workflow, one repetitive task, one thing that someone on your team spends 2 hours a day doing that they hate, and that agent could handle. Right? Nemoclaw simplifies running OpenClaw assistance with a single command, one task automated, 1 hour saved per day per session. And that compounds, right? I want to address one more thing directly because I know there's a version of the person listening to this who is skeptical. They've probably heard the AI hype cycle before, and who remembers when blockchain was going to change everything, when the metaverse was the future, when NFTs were an asset class. And I get it. I genuinely get the fatigue. But here's the difference. Those technologies required people to change their behavior dramatically to use them. You had to learn what a wallet was. You had to put on a headset. You had to understand what a smart contract was. AI agents require you to do exactly what you already do. Talk to someone, send a message, describe what you need. Peter Steinberger's stated mission is to build an agent that even his mum can use. That's a bar, not technical enough for developers, his mum, right? And that's where this is going. Nemoclaw is a major step on that road because it solves the enterprise security problem. There's been one legitimate blocker between interesting tech project and actual business deployment at scale. The security skeptics were right. Meta was right to block OpenClaw on work devices. The Chinese government was right to reflag the risks. This was a legitimate concern. Nvidia just addressed that concern directly and fixed it. So now you have a tool that's capable, affordable, getting easier to use every month, and that now has the security architecture that enterprise requires. That last excuse for not installing or not using AI agents literally just ran out. Now, let me give you something actionable before I close, because I never want to end one of these with just that is interesting. I want you to walk away with something you can actually do. So if you're a business owner or founder, your job this week is to make a list. Write down the 5 things in your business that are done the same way every day: repetitive, rule-based, time-consuming. That list is your AI agent roadmap. Those are your starting points. If you're a corporate manager, maybe a team lead, your job this week is to have one conversation with your IT or operations team about what it would take to pilot an AI agent system, not deploy, not buy, just pilot, right? One workflow, one test. That conversation starts the clock. If you're a developer or someone technical, the play is obvious. Get Nemoclaw running this week. Build a claw, understand the architecture. The people who know how to build and configure these systems are going to be in extraordinary demand over the next 18 months. Get the reps in now. If you're someone who is not technical, who's not corporate, who's just trying to figure this out, or how to use AI to do better work, save time, build a better life, and grow your business and get more customers and generate leads, the AI Profit Boardroom is a place that I've built specifically for you. Real breakdowns, real workflows, real community of people who are fighting this out together every single week. Link in the comments description, or just go to the arprofitforum.com. Here's what I want to leave you with. Peter Steinberger had no idea. When he sat down on a random afternoon in November 2025 and started building something, that 4 months later, Jensen Huang will be on a stage in San Jose calling it the operating system for the AI era. He was just building something useful, something that solved a problem he had, something that made his life a little easier. That's AI tools at their best. Things that make your life and work a little easier, a little faster, a little more humane, because you're spending less time on tasks that grind you down, more time on the work that actually matters. Nemoclaw is not magic. It's not a silver bullet. It will not automatically transform your business the moment you install it. But it is a door. And that door is now open in a way that it wasn't 6 months ago. The security barriers are down, the tools are free, the knowledge is available. And the only question is whether you walk through that door or not. I hope you do. Perplexity's new AI agent controls your web now. So something just happened this morning, and I don't think most people understand what it actually means yet. Perplexity just flipped a switch. And they announced that their AI tool called Computer can now take full control of Comet, their AI browser, and do things on the internet for you without you setting anything up, without you connecting apps, without you logging in manually, without any of the technical stuff that used to make AI agents a pain. You just say what you want and the AI does it on any site, in any app, anywhere you've already logged in. That's the announcement. And I want to walk you through exactly why that matters, because this is one of those things that just looks small on the surface, but is actually enormous underneath. Let me explain what happened. For the last year or so, AI agents have been the big promise in the space, right? The idea was simple. Instead of you sitting at your computer, clicking around, filling out forms, sending emails, doing research, an AI would do just all of that for you. You describe what you want, the AI would go implement it. And it sounds amazing, right? But the problem was the friction. To get an AI agent to actually do something useful, log into your email or pull data from your CRM or book a flight for you, you had to set up what are called connectors or MCPs, which stands for Model Context Protocol. These are basically little technological bridges between the AI and each app you want to touch. So if you want the AI to access your calendar, you have to build a connector. If you want to read Slack messages, add another connector. If you want it to go through your project's management tool, another one, right? And for regular people who didn't study software engineering, this was basically too time consuming and too energy draining to do, right? It was the fine print that killed the dream. The AI was there, the capability was real, but the setup required to unlock it was a wall most people can get over. And even for people who could, it took hours, sometimes days. And every new tool you wanted the AI to touch meant building another bridge. That wall just got knocked down. Here's what Perplexity actually did. Comet is their browser. So think of it like Google Chrome, except it has Perplexity's AI baked directly into it. Not as a sidebar, not as a plugin, but literally as a whole thing. You use Comet the way you use Chrome. So you log into your bank, your email, your project tools, your social media, and the browser just remembers you because that's what browsers do. Now, here's the part that actually changed. Perplexity's computer, that's their AI agent system, kind of like a competitor to OpenClaw, can now see inside Comet. It can take the wheel, can navigate to sites you've already logged into and do things on your behalf, fill out forms, click buttons, pull information, implement tasks. No new connectors are needed, no setup is required, and no building bridges are added because you're already logged in. The browser is already inside your accounts. Computer uses that. It steps into the driver's seat and starts driving. So when Comet and Computer emerge, the browser becomes the agent. That's a sentence that's been floating around all week in tech circles, and it's the right way to describe it. The browser used to be a window, you look through it at the internet, now it's at the hands, right? Let me give you a real picture of what this looks like in practice. Say you woke up Monday morning, you've got 40 emails to deal with, you've got a client proposal you need to pull data for, you've got 3 vendor websites you need to check pricing on, you've got a flight to book as well, right? Busy day. And the old way would be you sit down, you open tabs, you click through each one by one, maybe 3 hours of that kind of grinding busy work that just drains your energy. New way, you open up Comet, you tell computer what you need. So, for example, summarize my emails, pull the pricing from 3 sites, find me a flight to Chicago on Thursday, and draft a response to the client. The computer spins up a browser agent. It accesses each site you've already logged into. It pulls in the information, it takes the actions, and it comes back with results. You didn't click a single thing. Now, is this perfect today? No, there are still rough edges. I mean, one user on X named Tim Harris pointed out that during early testing, some sites didn't cooperate perfectly. There were access issues on certain platforms, real early adopter friction. But here's the thing, this is day one, and the direction is unmistakable. Now, just to give you an example, this morning I was testing out, and I said, like, post the latest AI news to my school community. And it literally just wrote a really nicely formatted post whilst I was on a live stream, posted it perfectly, and it did it better than anything else I've used. So, for example, yesterday I tested the same thing out with school on OpenClaw, and it just didn't work. This actually worked first time round, and then it found like the latest AI automation news, gave me a nice breakdown, and it seemed to handle everything that I threw at it. Now, to understand why this is so significant, you have to understand what came before. A year ago, if you wanted an AI to actually do things for you on the web, your options were basically OpenAI's Operator, which worked on a limited set of sites or tools that required complicated technical setup. And most people just never got there. The promise was always AI will do your computer tasks for you. The reality was AI will do your computer tasks for you once you spend 2 weeks building the plumbing. That's a long way from the promise. What Perplexity just did is collapse that gap. They said, look, you've already authenticated everywhere. The browser already has your keys. Let's just use that, right? Authenticated browser access is the final hurdle for agentic workflows. That was a quote bouncing around in the tech community this morning, and it's right. The hard part was always getting the AI into the places where your actual work lives, your logged in accounts, your real tools, not a demo environment, not a sandbox with fake data, your actual accounts. Comet plus computer just walk through that door. Now, I want to take a step back and tell you what Perplexity actually is, because if you're new to this, you need the context. Perplexity started as an AI search engine, right? So, not like Google, where you type a question and get a list of links you have to click through. It was more like a researcher. You ask it something, it reads the web, gives you a real answer with sources. And it got famous pretty fast. Perplexity has 22 million active users as of the last public numbers. It became the go to alternative for people who wanted actual answers instead of like 10 blue links on Google. But Aravind Srinivas, Perplexity CEO, who came out of Google Brain and OpenAI before starting this company, wasn't just building a better search box, he was building something bigger. Perplexity started as an AI search engine that gave direct answers instead of links. With Comet, it's now aiming to become the operating layer of your digital life, a personal AI that manages your computer, browser, email, shopping, travel, and finances. That's a vision, not a search engine, not a browser, an operating layer. The layer underneath everything that you do online. And they've been moving fast. Comet launched for Windows and Mac in July 2025, hit Android in November 2025, and is coming to iPhone on March the 18th, 2026. And if you haven't tested this out already, basically what this allows you to do is you can essentially use Perplexity on iOS as well, right? So not only can you use, for example, the iOS app for Perplexity Computer, but you can also get Comet directly on your phone as well. That's coming literally very soon. The iPhone launch alone is going to put this in front of millions of people who've never heard of Comet. And the timing of today's computer announcement is not an accident. This is a coordinated move. Here's a three-product stack that you need to understand, because this is what makes Perplexity different from every other AI company right now. Product one, Perplexity Search, the brain. It finds information, understands context, answers questions with sources. And product number two is Comet, right? The window into your digital life. The browser that holds your logged in sessions, your contacts, your history. Product number three is Computer, the hands, right? The agent that takes actions, runs workflows, implements tasks, and search finds information, Comet surfaces it in context, and computer acts on it autonomously. Together, they form a complete research to understand to execute pipeline. Most AI tools are just one piece of that, right? A chatbot that answers questions, an agent that can do one kind of task, a browser that's kind of AI flavored. Perplexity has all three, and they just connected them. That pipeline, research, understand, execute, is the whole game. That's the thing that replaces an AI system, right? That's the thing that replaces a lot of the repetitive cognitive work that knowledge workers and real humans do all day. Research a thing, understand the research, implement based on that, repeat. That loop running automatically without you manually pushing it forward each step. Right now, I want to steelman the skepticism for a second, because I know some of you are thinking, Julian, I've heard this before. Perplexity, AI agents, autonomous browsing, the future of the work. This has been promised for years and never quite works. And you're not wrong to be skeptical here. The history of AI agents is full of demos that looked incredible and then fell apart in practice. Things work when the conditions are controlled. They fall apart in the messy reality of real websites with weird layouts and sites that change and authentication flows that break and pages that fight automation. And there are real documented issues with Comet already. Security researchers at a firm called Zenity Labs found vulnerabilities last year, including one called Comet jacking, where attackers could theoretically access local files on a user's machine through the browser. Perplexity patched those issues, but it's a reminder that when you give an AI agent access to your browser, your authenticated sessions, your logged in accounts, you are giving a lot, right? And the power and the risk are the same thing. So, yes, healthy skepticism is warranted, and the direction this is moving in is not in question. When you look at the trajectory from AI that answers questions to AI that takes actions to AI that takes actions inside your real authenticated accounts, that progression is happening fast and it's not reversing. The question isn't whether this becomes real, the question is whether you're ready for it when it does. Now, let me tell you what the enterprise side of this already looks like, because whilst consumers are just hearing about this, enterprises already have been running it. Perplexity backed up their enterprise pitch with internal data. Across 16,000 queries benchmarked against institutional standards from McKinsey, Harvard, MIT, and BCG, the company claims Computer saved $1.6 million in labor costs, and 3.5 years of work was compressed into 4 weeks. Right? Read that again. 3.25 years of work compressed into 4 weeks. That's not a linear improvement, that's an exponential compression. And companies are signing up. Global AI spend is expected to reach $2.5 trillion in 2026, an increase of 44% year over year, according to Gartner. The money is moving, the enterprise contracts are getting signed, and the workflows are being rebuilt around those tools. Computer for Enterprise can handle coding with Claude and Codex, create dashboards, financial models, and decks without waiting on a data scientist or analytics team. That's a pitch to a CFO. You don't need to wait for your data team, the AI handles it. You don't need to outsource a report, the AI drafts it. You don't need an analyst to pull the numbers from Snowflake. A financial analyst can pull revenue by vertical from Snowflake. The system writes the queries, executes them, and delivers structured results. These are not hypothetical future features. They're live, they're running right now, and they're in enterprise environments. What's new today is that the authenticated browser access, the thing that made this accessible to regular people without technical setup, just went live for everyone. Now, here's what I want to talk about in terms of what this means for you, not for a Fortune 500 company, for you, right? Because there's a version of where these AI agents are a corporate tool that makes big companies more efficient, whilst regular people stay stuck doing things the slow way. And there's a version of this where regular people get access to the same leverage. And today's announcement is the second version. When computer can operate inside Comet with no connectors, no setup, no technical work, that's not an enterprise feature, that's a consumer feature. That's available to anyone with a Perplexity subscription. So let me walk you through exactly what that looks like for different kinds of people. If you're a freelancer, your biggest time sink is probably administrative work, right? Sending follow up emails, pulling data for proposals, checking client portals. All of that is browsing, it's click through work, and it's exactly what computer can do now inside Comet. You describe the task, it implements it, does the creative work and the mechanical work, right? If you're in sales, your day is probably a mix of research and outreach and CRM updates. That research going to LinkedIn, to company websites, to news sites, to competitor pages, pulling context on a prospect before a call is all browsing, right? And computer could do that research loop for you in minutes instead of hours. If you're in marketing, think about the competitive monitoring you do, right? Checking what competitors are publishing, looking at pricing pages, tracking what's changing. That's a ton of repetitive browsing. And all of it is now delegatable. If you're running your own business, and I talk to a lot of people who are inside the AI profit boardroom, think about every hour you spend doing things online that aren't actually core to your business, right? Admin, research, data collection. That's the time that comes back to you when tools like this work the way you're supposed to, right? Now, here's the honest caveat. Today is early. The tool is going to have rough edges. Not every site is going to cooperate perfectly. There will be moments where it doesn't work the way you expect, but here's a frame I'd encourage you to hold. The people who learn how to use these tools right now, who build the habits, figure out what works, get comfortable with delegating tasks to Perplexity, are going to have a massive advantage in 6 months or in a year, right? The learning curve is real and the payoff is climbing enormously for the people who learn this stuff, right? And this is a good moment to talk about the AI Profit Boardroom, because this is exactly what we dig into over there, right? Not just here's a new tool, everybody's doing that. We go deep on how do you actually use these tools to get time back? What are the specific workflows at work? What are the things that sound impressive but don't actually move the needle for your business? We've got people in there who are running lean businesses, some solo, some with small teams, and they're leveraging tools like Comet and Computer to do work that used to take a full team. We break down the tactics. We share what's working right now. We give you 30-day roadmaps. We update it every single day as the space moves. And if you're watching about this and thinking, I need to actually get good at this, not just watch videos about it. The AI Profit Boardroom is where that happens. Link in the comments description, or just go to the aiprofitboardroom.com. Okay, back to Perplexity. I want to zoom out and show you the bigger picture here because this isn't just about one browser and one AI agent. This is about a war for the browser, right? Google built Chrome in 2008 for one reason: to own the window through which people access the internet. If you control the browser, you control the gateway. You see the traffic, you set the defaults, you shape the experience. For 15 years, Chrome has held something like 65% of global browser market share. Safari had about another 19%, and together, Google and Apple control roughly 85% of all browser traffic on Earth. And that number has been immovable for years. Now, look at what's happening. The browser company launched its agentic browser Dia in mid 2025. Opera Neon is promising to assist users and take action on their behalf. Reuters reported that OpenAI is developing a better version of its own browser as well. And that already came out. Not that many people are using it, but it's getting better all the time. Now, every major AI company is trying to build or control a browser. Even Manus and GenSpark have their own versions, not because they love browsers, but because they understand what Google understood in 2008. Whoever controls the browser controls the AI layer. And Perplexity right now is moving faster than almost anyone. Comet is the most interesting browser launch since Arc. Not because it's the best browser, Chrome's ecosystem is obviously still unmatched, but because it's the clearest articulation of where browsers are heading. And the passive window becomes an active agent, right? You don't browse the web anymore, you describe what you need, and the browser does the browsing. Let me put the Samsung piece on the table too, because it ties directly into this. Samsung's Galaxy S26 is the first smartphone to integrate Perplexity's APIs at the platform level, right? Bixby now uses Perplexity for real-time web search and advanced reasoning, delivering accurate, up-to-date data, right, and answers. Samsung sells hundreds of millions of phones per year. So when Perplexity gets baked into Bixby, the default assistant on Samsung devices, they're not just getting a few million tech-savvy early adopters. They're getting distribution at a scale that most AI companies dream about. This is the playbook. Get into the browser, get into the phone, get into the enterprise, build the stack from the bottom up, and make your AI the layer underneath everything. Samsung Galaxy S26 will let you talk to comment about whatever is on your screen, interact with sites, or chat across multiple tabs without losing context. Think about that. Your phone, any app that you're looking at, you can ask the AI about what's on your screen. You don't have to copy and paste. You don't have to switch apps. The context is already there. That's not just a feature. That's a very different relationship with your phone. Now, I want to talk about the economic reality under all of this because there's a version of this story where Perplexity is just a cool tech company building impressive tools, right? And there's a version where this is fundamentally changing how the internet works. Let's talk about all of these. So I think it's the second version, right? And here's the pattern we keep seeing. Cursor, the AI coding tool, was doing about $300 million in annual revenue with 20 employees. And these are not big companies like these AI powered ones, right? These are small groups of people just using AI as leverage to produce output at a scale that would have required like hundreds of employees 5 years ago. Revenue per employee is a metric that's changing and it's changing fast. The traditional model was you grow revenue, you hire people to support that revenue, revenue per employee stays flat. The new model is you grow revenue, AI handles the scaling, revenue per employee goes exponential. So when an AI agent can do the browsing, the research, the data collection, the first draft, the routine outreach, what is left for the human? The judgment, the relationships, the creative direction, things that actually require a person to do. And that's not nothing, right? That's actually the most important stuff. So it's just a much smaller slice of what most people currently spend their working time on. And the people who figure this out early, you start delegating the mechanical parts and doubling down on the judgment parts, are going to be in a completely different position than the people who are still doing everything manually. Now, let me bring this back to the specific thing that happened today. Computer taking full control of Comet with no connectors required is a moment AI agents become accessible to normal people, right? Not just enterprise IT departments, not just developers who can build their own integrations, regular people who use a browser every single day. Perplexity Computer is designed for complex multi-step tasks and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And each one of those things is something a knowledge worker does manually every day. Each one of those things can now be delegated, right? And so I want to to you about something you can actually do with this information because information without action doesn't move anything. Here's how I think about it, depending on who you are. If you're a creator, a YouTuber, podcaster, creating content on social media, etc., your biggest leverage is the research and ideation phase, right? Start using comments, start asking computer to do your research loops for you. You can even schedule them in with Perplexity Computer. And every episode you're working on, every piece of content you're building, let the AI handle the initial research crawl. You apply the editorial judgment on top. If you're a marketer or a growth person, start delegating the monitoring work, competitive tracking, pricing checks, campaign research. These are browser tasks, right? If you're a founder or a business owner, think about every admin task your business requires. It involves a browser, vendor research, client portal updates, form submissions, research before calls. Start identifying which of those you can hand off. And if you're someone who just wants to be ahead of the curve, honestly, the single best thing you can do right now is download a comment, spend a week learning how it works, right? Not reading about it, using it. The gap between people who have hands-on experience with these tools and people who just know about them is enormous, right? The people who are winning with AI right now are not the people who have the most information about it, right? They're the people who have the most reps using it. Now, let me zoom out one more time and give you the full picture of where this is going. What Perplexity built is a stack: search, comment, computer, right? Time things, understand them in context, act on them. That pipeline is the skeleton of a personal AI. And right now it's early. The edges are rough. The authenticated browsing feature just launched. The iPhone app is already launched with Perplexity Computer, and Comet is coming soon. The enterprise version is rolling out. There are security issues that have been patched. Probably more will need patches, right? This is the messy, imperfect, promising early phase. A year from now, it's going to be different. The rough edges get smoother. The site compatibility improves. The multi-step workflows get more reliable. The model underneath gets smarter. And Comet is already running on Claude Sonnet 4.6 by default, with the option to use Opus 4.6 for harder tasks. 2 years from now, the browser you're using will feel like a dial-up internet compared to what these tools will be doing. I'm not saying that to hype you up. I'm saying it because the pace of improvement in this space has consistently outrun even the most optimistic projections. Every time someone says it'll be 2 years before this works, it takes like 6 months, right? The trajectory is real. The question is just how fast you're moving to meet it. Here's the tension I want to leave you with. This is genuinely exciting, right? The idea that you can describe a task and have an AI go execute it across your real accounts, your real tools, your actual digital life, that's real leverage. That's hours of time back every week for people who figure it out. And it's also real change in what works like and what works looks like in action, right? If the AI can do the browsing, the research, the data collection, the first draft, what does that mean for the people whose jobs were entirely made of those things? It's not a fake question. Those are real people and real jobs, right? I don't think the answer is everyone loses their job. I've never thought that was the most likely outcome, to be honest. I think the answer is more like the people who learn to use this as leverage grow faster. The people who fight it or ignore it just fall behind. And the hardest part isn't the technology, it's the psychological adjustment of learning to delegate something that isn't a person. We've been trained to feel productive when we're clicking through tabs, filling out forms, doing the busy work. Letting go of that and trusting the AI to handle it whilst you focus on the higher level work takes practice. It takes some trust. It takes being willing to learn these tools. But here's the thing: the people who figured out email when everyone else was still faxing had an advantage. The people who figured out smartphones when everyone else was skeptical had an advantage. The people who figured out the internet when it was early had a huge advantage, right? And this is the moment again. You're watching a browser become an agent. You're watching the friction between AI and your real digital life get removed. You're watching a company put three pieces together: search, context, and implementation in a way that nobody has ever done at consumer scale. You can watch it happen, or you can start learning right now. The choice to me seems obvious. And if you want help making that transition, not just knowing about the tools, but actually using them to build something and get leverage in your business, come join us in the AI Profit Boardroom. That's where we go deep on this stuff: what's working, what's not, how to actually integrate this into the way you work every day. Link in the comment description, or go to the airprofitboardroom.com to check it out. Let's see what we got in the comments here. Jason says, I'm building my own. Awesome. And then Wilty says, yeah, I plan to buy NVIDIA's 4K mini computer. Not yet, but I will be upgrading to the new M5 Pro once it's fully available to fully max it out. So that's my plan. Definitely going to be useful for learning AI and just testing out local models. Mox says, how many times do I need to learn about Perplexity? I guess like you're not really relearning what you've already learned. You're learning about the new updates, right? That's the way that I frame it. It's like every day there's something new, and every day I condense all my research down and then just give you something actually useful. All right, on to the next video. Nvidia's $1 trillion AI vision at their GTC conference. Here's a recap of everything that happened. So Jensen Huang walked onto a stage in San Jose, looked out at 30,000 people packed into the SAP Center, and said Nvidia expects $1 trillion in purchase orders for its AI chips through 2027. $1 trillion. Then he spent the next 2 hours explaining why that number might be too low. I want you to sit with that for a second because when I tell you about $1 trillion forecasts, it can sound kind of like a number that just gets thrown around in tech, right? Like, oh, another big number from a big company. But this is different. This is Nvidia, the company that already supplies the backbone of basically every AI system you've ever used. ChatGPT runs on Nvidia, Claude runs on Nvidia. Google's AI runs on Nvidia chips, right? And Jensen Huang just said demand is so high, so overwhelming that customers are literally constrained only by how fast Nvidia can build the hardware. If they could just get more chips, they would generate more revenue. That is the world that we're living in right now. And what I want to do today is just break down everything that happened at their GTC conference that just happened a few hours ago, NVIDIA's annual developer conference in plain English, because there are about 9 major announcements. I'm sure more will come out. And most of the coverage is so technical that a normal person reads it and feels lost. I'm going to tell you what it actually means, not just for tech companies, but for you, for your job, for your business, and for the next 5 years of your life. Let's start at the very beginning with a chip. So Vera Rubin's is the NVIDIA's new AI supercomputer platform, right? It's named after the astronomer Vera Rubin, who discovered dark matter by looking at things other people missed. Jensen Huang loves naming his hardware after scientists, and the names matter. They tell you something about what technology and what that specific technology is supposed to do. Vera Rubin, the astronomer, revealed hidden structure in the universe. Vera Rubin, the chip, is designed to power the era of what NVIDIA calls agentic AI, autonomous systems capable of complex reasoning, planning, and physical interaction. Here's what that means in plain language. The last generation of NVIDIA chips, the Blackwell chips, were built to train and run large AI models, right? So big, powerful, but basically doing one thing at a time. Vera Rubin is quite different. So it's built for AI agents, AI that doesn't just answer a question, AI that actually goes out into the world, takes actions, completes tasks, talks to other AI systems, runs for hours or days without stopping. That's fundamentally a different kind of computing than we've ever had before. And Vera Rubin uses NVIDIA's 3NM process from TSMC. It has 336 billion transistors, nearly double the density of its predecessor, and it includes HBM4 memory with 22 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Now, that sounds complicated. It sounds like technical numbers. Here's a translation. Think of memory like and a memory bandwidth like a highway, right? The old chips had a very wide highway, but there were traffic jams when too many cars tried to get through at once. HBM4 is like quadrupling the number of lanes and doubling the speed limit at the same time. The AI can think faster, run bigger models, and handle more complexity all at the same time. Vera Rubin is about to deliver and able to deliver 700 million tokens per second compared to just 2 million on the previous Hopper generation. 700 million tokens per second versus 2 million. It's not an upgrade. That's a different category of machine. And here's what that actually means for you. Every time you run an AI tool, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, whatever, the AI is generating tokens, words, ideas, code. The faster it can do that, the more it can do, the cheaper it gets, and the more useful it becomes. When NVIDIA says 700 million tokens per second, what they're really saying is this: the AI of 2026 is about to be dramatically more capable than the AI of 2025. And the AI of 2025 already felt like it changed everything. Vera Rubin is a new full stack computing platform comprising 7 chips, 5 rack scale systems, and 1 supercomputer for agentic AI. 7 chips with 5 rack scale systems and 1 complete supercomputer. And the first one is already running. The first Vera Rubin system is already running in Microsoft's Azure cloud. It's not coming soon, it's here right now. Now, let's talk about the 20 billion bet, the $20 billion bet that most people are sleeping on. Late last year, Nvidia spent $20 billion, its largest deal ever, to acquire Grok. Not the Grok AI from Elon Musk's X, Grok is in GROQ. a chip company founded by the people who built Google's in house AI processors. The Grok 3 LPU is built to enhance NVIDIA's technology, with one core optimized for speeding up the GPU. NVIDIA introduced a full rack dedicated to housing the new Grok accelerators. The Grok 3 LPX rack holds 256 LPUs and is meant to sit beside the Vera Rubin rack scale system, right? Now, why would that matter so much? Well, because until now, NVIDIA owned the training side of AI, right? So they had the best chips for building AI models. But there's another side of this, which is inference. And inference is when you actually use AI. When you type a question, it answers back. Inference has a different challenge. It needs to be fast, low latency, real time. The Grok LPU is purpose built for exactly that. NVIDIA says the addition of Grok's hardware allows them to deliver 35 times more performance at extremely high token per second rates. The Grok LPUs are deterministic. Everything is scheduled in software. NVIDIA uses Grok as an accelerator for Vera Rubin, with Grok handling the decode while Vera Rubin handles the prefill. In simple English, NVIDIA now owns both sides of the equation, training and inference, building the AI and running the AI. That is a level of vertical integration that no other company on earth has right now. And they just demonstrated it with a $20 billion hardware purchase. I keep saying that the AI infrastructure race is the most important thing happening in business right now. Most people don't see it happening because it's going on in data centers and server racks, not in apps on their phone, but the companies building this infrastructure are making bets that will pay off or not over the next decade. And Nvidia just made the single biggest bet in the history of this race. AWS and Nvidia are deploying more than 1 million Nvidia GPUs starting this year across AWS's global cloud regions. Azure was the first hyperscaler to power up Vera Rubin, 1 million GPUs through Amazon Web Services alone. Let that land for a second. AWS is one cloud provider, just one. And they're committing to over 1 million chips from NVIDIA. That tells you something and pretty much everything about where the demand is going. Now, let's talk about the thing that made Jensen Huang look slightly crazy to some people in the room and honestly kind of thrilled to everyone else. NVIDIA is going to space. Huang said Vera Rubin is headed to space. The goal is to start data centers with Vera Rubin Space One, right? Now, this is quite an interesting one. So, what this means essentially is, and this was just announced at the GTC as well, is that they're working on how to deal with radiation right now. So, data centers in orbit around Earth. Now, I want to acknowledge something here. Your first instinct might be to laugh this off. Jensen Huang announced space data sensors sounds like a joke, right? Sounds like something from a sci-fi movie, and I get that, but here's why I take it seriously. Think about what drove the last wave of data centers. It was the internet. The internet created demand for compute so large that we had to build massive warehouses full of servers around the world to keep it up, right? We put them near rivers for cooling. We put them in cold countries to save on energy. We optimized every inch of those buildings to run as efficiently as possible. AI is doing the same thing to compute right now, but at a scale that makes the internet wave look small. And one of the biggest limiting factors for AI data centers right now is power. Right? You need enormous amounts of electricity, and global data centers are struggling with the dual pressures of skyrocketing AI demand and fixed power grids. Space solves a lot of those problems. You have near unlimited solar power. You have the vacuum of space for cooling. You have no ground level infrastructure constraints. The physics of running a data center in orbit are genuinely better than running on the ground if you can solve the engineering challenges. NVIDIA says they're solving the engineering challenges, and given their track record, I'm not going to bet against them. Right now, let's talk about the announcement that's going to affect your life the most, even if you've never heard of it before today. OpenClaw. OpenClaw is an open source platform built by a developer named Peter Steinberger. It lets you create agents. They go off and implement stuff, right? Now, roughly 2 hours into Jensen Huang's keynote, Huang turned to the phenomenon of OpenClaw, which was launched in January, and it surged to millions of uses across the world, right? It's one of the biggest open source projects of all time. Jensen Huang called OpenClaw the operating system of personal AI. He compared it to what Windows was for personal computers. Think about that comparison. Before Windows, computers were for engineers and programmers. After Windows, your grandma could use one. Jensen is saying OpenClaw is doing the same thing for AI agents. It's taking something that used to require deep technical knowledge and made it accessible to anyone. And now Nvidia has an enterprise version of it. They're calling it Nemoclaw. Nemoclaw is enterprise secure, helping protect sensitive information. AI agents can communicate externally and execute without intervention. Nemoclaw provides a reference software stack for businesses to keep OpenClaw secure. Here's why that matters so much. The version of OpenClaw that went viral is great, but it had a problem, right? Security. When your AI agent is running around your computer, connecting to external systems, reading emails, you need to know that information isn't leaking out somewhere, right? And for a big company, that's a huge risk to take. Now, Nemoclaw solves that. It's the enterprise safe version, the version a company can actually deploy at scale without their legal team worrying, right? Jensen said every company in the world needs to have an open core strategy, similar to a Linux focus or a HTTP HTML focus. He said OpenClaw has open source the operating system of agentic computers. Every company, not every tech company, every company. I want you to sit with that because Jensen Huang is not a hype merchant. He's one of the most technically credible CEOs in the world. When he says every company needs a strategy for this, he's not making a sales pitch. He's describing what he sees when he checks the data, the demand curves, the customer conversations, the infrastructure build out. He's telling you where this is going. Here's what this means practically. Right now, AI automation building agents that do the work for you is mostly happening in tech companies and startups. The people who know how to build them are doing it. The people who don't know how to build them are watching it happen. Nemoclaw is a bridge that lets any company in any industry start deploying agents without needing a team of engineers. And that gap between the people who know how to use it and the people who don't is the most important gap in business right now. It's widening every single month. This is exactly why I built the AI profit boarding, because the honest truth is that most people are never going to figure this out on their own, right? Not because they're not smart, but because technology is moving so fast that even full-time AI people have to sprint to keep up. The boardroom is where I break down exactly what's actionable, what's noise, and what you should be building right now. And if you want to get ahead of this, instead of scrambling to catch up, the link is in the comments and description. Now, let's go back to the announcement because we're just getting started here. Let's talk about autonomous vehicles because Jensen Huang made some announcements here that I think got lost in all the chip news, and they're going to matter enormously. Huang said Nvidia has 4 new partners when it comes to autonomous cars and declared the ChatGPT moment for autonomous driving is here. He also announced a new partnership with Uber. The ChatGPT moment for self-driving cars. If you remembered what happened when ChatGPT launched in late 2022, that moment when AI went from a tech industry to a mainstream thing, when your parents started asking you what it was, when every company in the world had to suddenly have an AI strategy, Jensen is saying that's happening right now for self-driving vehicles. Collaborations with automotive giants like BYD, Hyundai, and Nissan enhance the robo-taxi platform. Partnerships with Uber and robotics companies aim to deploy physical AI models. And BYD, the biggest electrical vehicle company in the world, Hyundai, Nissan, Geely, these are not startup partnerships. These are the companies that build tens of millions of vehicles every year, and they're all building on NVIDIA's platform. Think about what that means. When you talk about AI coming for jobs, people usually think about software, programmers, writers, analysts, but the biggest job category in most countries is driving. Truck drivers, delivery drivers, taxi drivers, rideshare drivers. And they just announced that Uber is deploying NVIDIA powered robo taxis across 28 cities by 2028. 28 cities by 2028. That's 2 years from now. I'm not here to tell you how to feel about that, but I think you should know it's coming because if you have family members or friends whose livelihood depends on driving, this is not an abstract future concern. This is a very specific near term change. And here's the thing that I keep coming back to the people who understand this technology, who understand what's coming, who can help companies and individuals navigate it, are going to be in extremely high demand, right? The people who ignore it are going to be caught completely off guard. Now, let's talk about what comes after Vera Rubin because NVIDIA is not stopping. Feynman systems are on track for 2028. If you don't know what that means, I'll explain it in a second, but essentially that's coming pretty soon as well. So, named after Richard Feynman, the physicist who made quantum mechanics understandable to normal people, Jensen Huang's chip naming convention is never an accident, right? So Feynman was a person who could take the most complex ideas in physics and explain them so simply that anyone could grasp them. And Jensen announcing his chip architecture named after him, well, that tells you something about where he thinks AI is going. It's getting more powerful, it's getting more accessible. And NVIDIA's next major architecture is Feynman, which will include a new GPU, NVIDIA Rosa, named for Rosalind Franklin, whose X ray crystallography revealed the structure of DNA and reshaped modern biology, right? Rosalind Franklin, the woman whose work on DNA was one of the most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century, and who didn't get nearly enough credit for it in her own lifetime. Nvidia naming their next CPU after her is not just a tribute, it's a signal. The CPU is built to move data, tools, and tokens efficiently across the full stack of AI infrastructure, revealing the hidden architecture of the system, just like Franklin revealed the hidden architecture of life. I find this stuff genuinely fascinating. Not just the tech, the story Jensen Huang is telling with his choices. Now, let's zoom out for a second because I want to give you the real picture of what just happened yesterday. 1 year ago, Nvidia's projection for Blackwell and the previous generation of chips was $500 $500 billion dollars in revenue opportunity through 2027, a $500 billion forecast. That was considered enormous, almost unbelievable. At GTC 2026, Huang took the stage and said he expects purchase orders between Blackwell and Vera Rubin to reach $1 trillion through 2027. Last year, the company had projections for a $500 billion revenue opportunity. Following NVIDIA's earnings report last month, finance chief Colette Kress said the company expects growth this year to exceed what was included in that estimate. They doubled the forecast and then said demand is constrained only by supply. Let me translate what demand constrained by supply means. It means customers are lined up with money in their hands, waiting to buy NVIDIA chips, and NVIDIA literally can't make them fast enough to satisfy the demand. In most industries, that's a temporary situation. You ramp up production, you meet the demand, the gap closes. But NVIDIA's chips are so specialized, so complex, and so dependent on a specific supply chain, TSMC in Taiwan for manufacturing, SK Hynix and Samsung for memory, that ramping up production takes years. You can't just flip a switch and make more. This is why the demand forecast keeps going up. Because the demand is real and the supply is genuinely limited. NVIDIA currently holds 90% of the high end AI accelerator market, and NVIDIA hardware has turned into a de facto standard that software engineers and developers can't ignore. 90%. In business school, professors talk about companies with pricing power, market dominance as theoretical ideals. NVIDIA is running a live demonstration of what that actually looks like. And when you have 90% of the market for something that every major company in the world desperately needs, you can set the price, you can set the terms, you can dictate the roadmap. And here's what that means for everyone else, including you. The companies that are building on top of NVIDIA's infrastructure are making huge bets that it will keep getting cheaper and better, right? OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, every major AI company in the world, right? And NVIDIA just showed them a roadmap that goes from 700 million tokens per second today to whatever Feynman delivers in 2028. Every single one of those token improvements translates directly into better AI deals for you, right? And so it was a big announcement for all of this, and so much happened at that event that it's absolutely wild, right? Um, you know, I don't know where to start with all of this, but I would say let's bring it home. Okay, because I want to give you the clearest picture of what yesterday and the GTC conference means, right? And there's still more announcements coming. Basically, Jensen Huang stood in front of 30,000 people in San Jose, plus hundreds of thousands watching online, made the following claims with a straight face. NVIDIA's customers want $1 trillion of chips and can't get them fast enough. NVIDIA is building data centers in orbit. They just acquired a chip company for $20 billion, specifically to make AI faster and cheaper for real-time use. And every company on Earth needs an AI agent strategy. The ChatGPT moment for self-driving cars has arrived, and the architecture they're building right now, Feynman, arriving in 2028, will make today's hardware look like a toy. And the remarkable thing is that none of those claims are like wild speculation. Every single one of them is backed by purchase orders, partnerships, hardware that's already shipping, and a company with a decade-long track record of delivering exactly what it says. NVIDIA has built an installed base across every cloud and computer in every single industry. Their CUDA software platform is celebrating its 20th anniversary at this year's GTC. 20 years of CUDA, right? 20 years of building the software layer that AI runs on. The moat NVIDIA has built is not just hardware, it's not just chips, it's the entire ecosystem, the software, the developer tools, the partnerships, the supply chain that every AI company in the world has built their products on top of. And that's not something a competitor can replicate in a year or 5 years or maybe ever. As Jensen Huang said, AI is no longer a single breakthrough application. It's essential infrastructure. Every company will use it. Every nation will build it. Every company and every nation. I've been covering AI for a long time now. I've seen a lot of announcements, a lot of keynotes, a lot of big numbers and bold claims. What I can tell you is that GTC 2026 felt different, not because of the individual announcements, although they were genuinely impressive, but because of the convergence. The hardware and the software and the partnerships and the use cases are all coming together at the same time, at the same scale, in a way that doesn't look like a trend anymore. It looks like infrastructure, the way electricity became infrastructure, the way the internet became infrastructure, the way the smartphone became infrastructure, right? These things don't just change how they work, they change how the world works. They become invisible because they're everywhere, right? And AI is becoming infrastructure. Nvidia is building the power grid. And the question for you is, what are you going to do with the electricity, right? Because the people who figured out electricity early didn't just use it, they built things on top of it that nobody had imagined before. The people who figured out the internet early didn't just browse websites, they built businesses that changed every industry on the planet. The people who figure out AI agents early, who understand Nemoclaw or who understand what Nvidia is building or who know how to direct and deploy these systems, are going to build things we can't even imagine right now. That's the opportunity on the other side of this. And the other side of everything Jensen Huang said yesterday. So the world is not getting simpler. It's not going back. The $1 trillion forecast isn't going to shrink. The chips are getting faster. The agents are getting smarter. And the companies are deploying it at scale. The only question is whether you're standing and where you're standing when all of it arrives. And I keep saying this, the time to get ready is not when the wave is already on top of you. The time to get ready is now. When you still have the time to learn, to build, to position yourself, to understand what's happening and what it means for your work, your business, and your future. Don't wait until your company announces an AI initiative and you're scrambling to catch up, right? Don't wait until the robotaxi, sorry, is already in your seat. Don't wait until Nemoclaw is running inside every competitor in your industry and you're wondering why your business is falling behind. Start now, learn now, build now. That's what I'm trying to help you do every single episode, every single day. I'll see you tomorrow. And if you want to learn AI automation, if you want to get help with this, if you want to connect with me personally, join the AI Profit Boardroom. Link in the comments description or go to the AIprofitboardroom.com. I appreciate you watching and I will see you on the next one. Let's see what we've got in the chat here. So KH says, believe me, sometime I think this live is made by the agent you made. No, it's the real me. A lot. I get that a lot. Let's have a look on YouTube, see what the comments are like. The glancing at screens makes him seem human, but I'm not sure if I'm real anymore. Some of these comments are great. I'm glad that I seem so good at this and reading out loud that I seem like AI, but it's really just me. Why didn't Peter Steinberg develop the system for safer running? I think he actually worked with OpenClaw. So he was at GTC conference, and I think he's speaking pretty soon. But the architecture and the infrastructure required to build this stuff yourself is a lot of work, right? And it requires hardware that Nvidia have, but Peter Steinberger doesn't have. So maybe he's working on it with OpenAI. Wilty says the chat is in real time, but I'm not sure if the real Julian is present in real time. I am, my friend. But I just answer the questions in the comments later. Have you already tried the Nemoclaw? I haven't, because you can only run it either on a VPS with Windows or Linux, or you need to you need to use a VPS with those installed. So you can't get access to it directly on a Mac. And Wilty says Jensen did praise Perplexity during his keynote presentation. Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job for sure. All right, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, peeps. Bye bye.